most certainly here to stay.
Primetime is a showcase for the best that American television can be, and so when America sits down to watch, it demands more than stock characters going through the motions. To flourish in primetime, these shows have to reflect America in all its individuality, diversity, and eccentricity. And that's how some of the most high-risk characters in the primetime crowd are born. This is the awkward squad, the ones who can't, or won't, or aren't allowed to fit in. Geeks, freaks, misfits. But though they may march to a different drummer, in prime time they become one of us, and we become one of them.
I think TV's always been a fantastic medium for taking characters who, they're outrageous. They're slightly inappropriate.
People who are socially awkward, or people who are missing a sort of an etiquette or a filter.
Schlubs, nerds, weirdos. It's not a normal person. Someone who has almost zero self-awareness. Kind of zero wisdom. Expressing things that they've thought of, but would never say. All it has to be is someone who doesn't fit into the world that the audience belongs to.
On television, for some reason, they've all found homes.
And whether you're pushing that to comedic extremes for laughs or reaching for a kind of a drama, both things are appealing.
They are, in fact, misfits with a capital M.
And it's just fun to see institutions sort of undone in some sort of inappropriate way by somebody who just dares to be there doing it.
Comedy by its very nature is derisive. You are picking on somebody. Doesn't matter who it is. Now, it can be an ethnicity, it can be a physical feature, it can be bald people, fat people, short people. I got all three. It can be just about anything, but in order to get a laugh, you are actually pointing at and shining a light on some sort of either generic or specific foible. When you do it with the misfit, and the misfit doesn't crumble, everybody feels better.
Knock off that smile. Tighten up that face. I want to see them lips white. I want to see them tight.
That guy has it worse than me. He's being treated worse than me, and he's not dying.
I don't like you. You like me? Yes, sir.
Misfits in television shows. That's like every show I ever watched.
You can't be too careful these days. There are a lot of strange people in this world.
I'm a big fan of just the classic TV shows.
Get through. What does that sign say? It says Beverly Hills.
I don't even care what the episode's about. I just like to see those characters be those characters. Gilligan was a misfit. He was this kind of knucklehead. Corporal Agard on FTP was an idiot.
There have been so many versions of a certain kind of a comedy character who just doesn't get it, and in an exaggerated comedic way kind of relates to how, a lot of us feel. That's what's funny.
character who's needy or hapless or is kind of evil or horny or greedy.
I did it. Alley-oop.
Gomez Adams, he was horny and greedy and multilingual.
That was living, mon ami.
Fish. When you speak French, you drive me wild. Speak some more French, Tish. Anything. Tout à l'heure. La prime de matin. Mademoiselle from Armentières. Anything.
When I was a little boy, I was probably bothered by my strangeness. And one day, someone laughed. And I thought, let's go for it.
Wonderful.
For a minute there, I thought I was going to miss.
Adams Family was a world that operated by its own set of rules. People talked a certain way. There was a certain style. There was a certain mystery. You just never knew what was going to happen next. It's kind of like Alice in Wonderland, in the form of a TV show.
These businessmen, always in such a hurry.
When we look at the 40s, 50s, 60s, 40s were filled with war and its aftermath. 50s, everybody wanted to be very straight. There were efforts to force conformity.
Yes, indeed. Both Don and Sue look like the kind of people you'd like to know, don't they?
The ordinary 50s television family, they're unnatural. The people were a little bit phony, a little too perfect, a little too stiff, and they begged for a loosening up.
The premise of the Addams Family was that, they were insane, but kind of trying to live this suburban life. I think some of them were in different states of actually being alive. Is Lurch alive?
They're misfits, but they have a confidence about who they are and the fact that they're so different. You just absolutely adore those characters. You love them.
While they seem to have a strange exterior, underneath, they're the healthiest family on television. Parents really doing something with the children. Sending a rocket through the roof.
Right through Uncle Fester's room.
Too bad he's not home. He'd have gotten a bang out of it.
That's an activity.
Any show, I don't care if it's Star Trek or a Western or a cop show or set in the office or set in the taxi depot, is about a family.
Taxi was amazing in who it brought together.
Thank you very much.
You had this melting pot of all these different characters. They weren't a family, but they became a family.
Taxi was about this family of misfits who had dreams that were greater than working in this garage.
Really, it's going to be okay, We'll just take your application up to the counter and then they'll give you the test, okay?
And it was this beautiful metaphor for life.
What does a yellow light mean? Slow down. Okay. What?
You look at that show and you say, okay, there's a wild card, there's a crazy character.
Your friend Wheeler is a loser, Bridget, and I'm gonna tell him he's a loser, and I'm gonna love telling him he's a loser.
Louis De Palma is like the gnat that's always in somebody's ear, the guy that's really pushing him, egging him on.
He's a loser.
You never saw anybody on television be that nasty. This is the worst boss, teacher, friend, relative.
The reveal of him in the pilot, yelling he's nasty thing, and that cage thing opens and he comes down.
Hold everything. Okay, I gotta get break up with you guys.
Mostly broadcast networks were strongly suggesting that every character needed to be likable and they can't do anything that's going to upset anybody because we really need to root for them.
I always use Louis De Palma as an example of when I get the note, you know, this character's not likable. Really? Have you seen the show Taxi? Did you see Louis De Palma? Was he likable to you? He was lovable. Because he was really funny.
They played up just how unlikable he was. You know, just a great sitcom villain. And then they did a brilliant thing where they started showing episodes where you began to sympathize with him.
I'm on my way to some event and I have to change.
He's peeping at Elaine's character dressing in the locker room and he's caught.
It's absolutely untrue.
Oh, yeah? So then why are your eyes tearing?
Because I'm hurt. I'm hurt that you would even think that I could do such an awful thing.
So how come only one eye is tearing?
Well, it's not the end of the world.
And I say, don't you understand? And, you know, it's like, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. And I go, haven't you ever been violated?
And he tells this heartbreaking story about having to buy clothes in the children's section.
The only way I can get anything to fit me is, I have to go to, a men's store and walk straight to the boys department.
And it made you feel for him in such an interesting way.
He says, oh, Nardo, is that how you made you feel? And he says, you know, I say, kind of. And so then we, you know, have this really, really sweet moment.
God, I'm sorry. It's okay.
And of course, he grabs me on the butt. You know.
I think Misfit characters succeed when they say something very true, almost by accident, about everybody who fits.
Comedy often is meant to provoke, to agitate a little bit, to push some buttons. Certain characters entertain us in that way, and they actually, you know, in their own way, they do provoke some thought.
Using misfits to break taboos, to shout the things that the mainstream thinks but never says, was deployed to greatest effect in a sitcom that, according to its creators, was about nothing.
What's the matter?
My mother caught me.
Caught? You doing what?
You know. I was alone.
If the misfit can ask the question that nobody else can because they're either dumber or they're, from another land or whatever it may be, then clearly the Seinfeld Four can talk about masturbation when nobody else on television could talk about masturbation.
I'll tell you this stuff. I am never doing that again.
What? You mean in your mother's house or all together?
All together.
Give me a break.
Right. You don't think I can?
No chance!
You think you could?
Well, I know I could hold out longer than you.
Care to make it interesting?
It's absolutely brand new territory. I was convinced that they were not going to let us get away with this.
The contest had us absolutely scratching our heads going, okay, no one gave us an advance warning of this.
NBC had no inkling that the contest was coming because I didn't disclose it until the day of the read-through.
Everybody was just madly trying to get up to speed with this subject matter, and can we do it? Should we do it?
Did you make it through the night? Yes, I'm proud to say I did. So you're still master of your domain? Yes. Yes, I am. Master of my domain.
I worked myself up into this lather where I was actually intending to quit the show if they didn't put it on the air.
There's a naked woman across the street. Where? Second floor from the top. See the window on the left?
I'm quitting. I'm going to quit. They don't let me do this. I'm done.
I'm out.
I was shocked when they said, hey, we love it. Just have a couple of things.
You're out?
Yeah. Wow, that was fast.
Seinfeld was an experiment. It didn't have traditional structure. It certainly didn't have traditional characters. Writers somehow felt they had to present characters that were more honorable, more respectful, and somehow they weren't nearly as real.
It used to be that the Misfits had a certain, well, I am who I am, but I have to fit into the real world. The Beverly Hillbillies did try to adjust to Beverly Hills. The Seinfeldians and, the newer groups are not trying. The world has to work according to them.
I'm not sure television dared to do that before.
We like to think of ourselves and our society as being a lot smarter than it is, maybe.
Do you want to be expelled outright? Kicked out of school for good? Condemned to a life of stupidity?
Okay. Yeah, me too. When can we start?
I remember reading a statistic, and it was something like, 30% of high school students in America can't locate the United States on a globe if that's not marked. And people being horrified and surprised, and I was thinking, yeah, that sounds about right.
Now remember the rules, Beavis. I throw it at you, then you throw it at me. I don't get it. How do you win? Ow!
It is easy and probably good practice to use the misfit, which is, again, the person that is lesser than us. They're the ones we can look down on in some way. That's the misfit. To use them, as Shakespeare said, hold the mirror up to society and ask people to take a look at themselves.
What do we do now? We could do homework.
Audiences can connect with that behavior because we're flawed. We're all flawed. And in fact, the offensive creative material is that which doesn't acknowledge our flaws, where people behave well and are perfect.
Would you like a copy of my butt?
A lot of the 80s television was very kind of, there was a lot of very goody-goody stuff, I don't know, I mean, I like the Cosby Show, but it was, everyone's going to Princeton and everybody's smart and good. Beavis and Butthead to me was partially a reaction to all of that.
And now you should be able to see the inherent beauty of the Dewey Decimal System.
I see the beauty.
Oh, yeah. Some characters have no desire to get better, or they're just stupid, and they're just wrong because they're just dumb and they just can't get it.
Cracks me up. But there's more to being a Primetime outsider and playing the fool. One of the most influential shows of the early 90s, touching US strength of small time surrealism and split a generation of TV viewers.
Mark Frost and I got together and would have coffees. I think we started at Dupar's on Ventura Boulevard. And somewhere along the line, this idea came of this kind of setting in a small town in northwestern United States of America. Twin Peaks, this town has a mood. It's near the woods. It's a small town bunch, so there's people in a diner, people at a gas station, people in school. They're all normal, but just like when you get to know people, you discover many, many, many peculiarities.
The lady with the log. We call it the log lady.
My log has something to tell you. Do you know it?
I don't believe we've been introduced.
Creating these people and this world that just, first blush went, that's just insanity.
You could say we all have a television set in our brain, and you can turn the channels and see what comes on. It's just there. There it is. It's not as crystal clear as the story, finally, when it's finished, but it's like that. So much like that.
David Lynch's use of Americana, that disparity between the dark underbelly, between our expectation of what that world is like and what it's really like. There are murders in small town. People have been killing teenagers and jealous wives and drug use and all of that behind that Norman Rockwell painting forever, and he just zeroed in on that.
In my dream, Sarah Palmer has a vision of her daughter's killer. Deputy Hawk sketched his picture. I got a phone call from a one-armed man named Mike. The killer's name was Bob.
Mike and Bobby?
No, it's a different Mike and a different Bob. They lived above a convenience store. They had a tattoo. Fire. Walk with me.
Twin Peaks is a constant frame of reference in writers' rooms. You will constantly hear people bring it up.
What? The feeling of it was just like... You felt it viscerally. Twin Peaks was not that you felt emotions like sadness or happiness. You just felt this visceral feeling of dread and strangeness. The dream sequences, I give up.
She's will do you first. Why, we're from the birds sing a freshly song.
I got down to that. I could not believe those dreams. They just seemed like real dreams. Nightmares. And we did a lot of dream sequences on The Sopranos. We never got close to that.
Twin Peaks showed that outsiderdom could be fuel for drama as well as comedy.
It's so heartening that Twin Peaks is now considered a classic, because it's one of those shows that is so strange. You wouldn't have thought audiences would be able to swallow, surrealism in primetime television, and they did, and they loved it.
I really am not really interested in characters who aren't outsiders. I think I sort of grew up with an outsider's perspective for a variety of reasons, and I still have it.
As a writer, I love writing about characters who are misfits, whether they know that they are misfits or not.
I find characters who are insiders, who are getting it right, who are doing the right thing, who are well-adjusted and organized and motivated.
Life's winners are not that interesting to me.
I just think they're really boring. Stop. David Fisher in 6 Feet Under is a gay man, afraid to acknowledge who he is, so he's living in a sort of outside bubble. I'm gay, so of course I take those struggles seriously.
Please, God, help me. Take this pain away, please. Fill this loneliness with your love. I felt a sense of responsibility when I was cast in the role of David, because I did recognize he was totally unique at that point. A fully fleshed out, central gay character with a complex relationship to his work, to his family, to his sexuality. He wasn't incidentally gay. He wasn't comic relief. He wasn't the neighbor upstairs with the little dog. He was David. He was right there in the middle of it all. Mom?
You do have to write what you know, because then you can bring this, you bring a knowledge to it and a depth to it, because those emotions are real.
You okay?
I have a terrible headache.
Well, maybe we can talk later.
What? What?
I'm gay.
My relationship with death and characters' relationship with their own mortality has been a big theme for me. My sister was killed in a car accident when I was 13 years old, and that sort of, cut my life in half. I've been very fortunate in that I've been able to, focus that through my work.
TV writers today have seized on the drama of the minority position. Maybe that's because so many Americans these days feel that they're in a minority of one. Primetime has a reassuring message. Everyone's got rights, and even a vampire's got feelings.
Humans are usually more squeamish about vampires than you are.
Who am I to be squeamish about something out of the ordinary?
I always think it's interesting when somebody has a knee-jerk reaction of fear towards something that is different.
What, do you have a death wish?
No, I don't have a death wish. I just happen to think that judging an entire group of people based on the actions of a few individuals within that group is morally wrong.
Well, I will not let you put yourself or this far in danger. I won't.
I guess that's why horror as a genre can be such a potent arena in which to explore these kinds of things.
Vampires often turn on those who trust them, We don't have human values like you.
A lot of humans turn on those who trust them too.
True Blood is about what is normal and why do we fear people who are different than we are.
The American people need to know these are creatures of Satan, demons. Literally, they have no soul.
But Reverend Newland, you must be aware of polls that show consistently growing support for vampire rights.
Those polls are fixed.
It challenges the idea of what's normal. But what's your idea of normal in a world where there's vampires and werewolves and shapeshifters?
There's a running theme in the show about vampires struggling for assimilation, which I think makes it fun to sort of look at that struggle in a way that is not really earnest or heartfelt about the real struggles that minorities face.
Well, Americans don't think you people deserve special rights. They're the same rights you have. No, I'm just saying there's a reason things are the way they are. Yeah. It's called injustice.
It's a supernatural world. It makes you think about how often people don't feel exactly in sync with everyone else.
It's about being an outsider, being different. A big theme in my work is the struggle to be authentic in an increasingly inauthentic world.
United States of Terror is about a woman who is a wife and mother who also happens to have dissociative identity disorder, which is also known as multiple personalities.
Oh, Jesus Christ, it's happening again. It's happening. I'm losing time again.
There are a lot of rules pertaining to mothers on television. People like to see good mothers, and it's a note that you get a lot.
I want to up my medication, but I don't think there's anything wrong with me.
So to me, it was kind of revolutionary to be able to say, this woman is deeply flawed, and she's also a good mother. Deal with that.
I want my real mother, and only my real mother, and none of you other freaks. Just her. Everybody else, go away.
Tara obviously realizes that she is unusual. She is definitely struggling to fit in. We always jokingly call ourselves a traumatic comedy because it is a funny show, but it's rooted in something that's really quite disturbing.
Wonderful. Now I've got tab on my dress.
There's this belief that characters on television need to be extra relatable and extra sympathetic because they're coming into your home week after week. The idea of normal has definitely been skewed. I think now we're realizing that abnormal is normal.
We really are in the age of the nerds, you know, the people that we all look up to. Someone like Bill Gates, you know, one of the most famous Americans. He's this dorky kid from Seattle with a computer startup. The nerds are kind of revered in new and different ways. I mean, you ask people like, oh, were you really popular and you fit in and you got along with everyone? It's a pretty small percentage of people that would go, yeah, we relate to that. It's a universal experience. You should get one of these.
No, thank you.
I grew up in suburban Seattle as quite a nerd. For instance, in my sophomore year of high school, I was playing Dungeons & Dragons. I was on the debate club, Model United Nations, computer club, marching band where I played the bells. I know that nerd world pretty well.
America and Britain, as someone once said, are two nations divided by a common language. And so the translation of Wernham Hogg in Slough into Dunder Mifflin in Scranton, Pennsylvania, was always going to be a major undertaking. Not least was the delicate question of how you turn a plonker into a nerd.
Dwight, to me, is the most bizarre character. I mean, he did exist in so many different times.
One of the great things that we did was to incorporate some of Rain's life story. He brought in, I remember, a photo album of relatives of his who were pretty rural. And that helped. We passed that around and really kind of saw what his stock was.
When we discover on around season 2 or 3 that Dwight is actually a farmer.
Welcome to Shroot Farm!
And it all clicks, it all falls into place, because I don't know how much time you've spent with farmers. They're kind of weird people. We think, oh, farmers are salt of the earth. You know, I have a lot of family that are farmers. They're not really salt of the earth. They kind of are, but they can be just weirdos.
And just as you have planted your seed in the ground, I am going to plant my seed in you.
The nerd, the social misfit, the antagonist, the clannish person who comes from a very Germanic love of rules.
I have decided to shun Andy Bernard for the next 3 years, which I'm looking forward to.
It's an Amish technique. It's like slapping someone with silence.
I love the Office characters. I think they're all of us and none of us at the same time.
Okay, you know what? How much is that?
That's only $25.
Wow.
I used to make this joke where I said, I love the Bourne Identity, but I would like it more if it starred George Wendt, Norm from Cheers.
Why don't you sit down, Norm?
I just think that it's funny to see people trying to succeed in life and they have bigger obstacles.
Man, I hate high school.
I had a friend recently whose son is very nerdy, doesn't really fit in school. I had my DVD box of Freaks and Geeks. I was like, tell you what, I'm going to give you this box. You sit down with your son, you watch Freaks and Geeks from beginning to end, watch all 17 episodes, and I guarantee you things will change.
High school is the time that one has to start to face whether they fit in society.
Why are you always the one who's out of step? Is there something the matter with you? What makes you the outsider?
That's what I always found interesting about high school is it's this kind of great social, experiment in which you lump all these kids into a building, and the only thing we all have in common is we're the same age.
Well, if you were one of the popular people in high school, you were in the center of the action, and you weren't observing it, and you weren't having thoughts about it, really, because you were living it. And the envy and resentment and all these emotions kind of make the creative person want to do a satirical take on it.
You're dead, weird.
I'm sick of being called a geek. I mean, what's so geeky about us anyways? We're just guys.
To me, it's all about rooting interests. You want to root for the person who has the least chance to succeed. Freaks and Geeks was my attempt to recreate my actual experiences in high school. Paul Feig grew up as a nerd in Michigan, so he wanted to make a high school show that was about what his high school life was about, which was a lot of beatings, apparently, a lot of humiliation.
Sorry, did I crush your Twinkies?
What I did was on the first day I created this questionnaire that I handed out to all the writers, and it said, what was the most humiliating thing that ever happened to you in high school? What's the worst drug you took? What's the maddest your parents ever got at you?
We literally sat in a room for 2 weeks and just told personal stories and mined that for the whole season.
It became a collective spewing of pain.
Buy this garment and I guarantee you'll be perceived as a man of distinction by the ladies.
The Parisian jumpsuit was actually something that I really did.
He claims that when he was a kid, he thought it would be cool to have this Parisian night suit. And I think he wore it and was humiliated.
The minute I walked in the door, I knew I had made a horrendous mistake. And I was stuck in that thing all day and I couldn't get out.
It does seem that you have to go through a bath of pain to become a professional comedy writer.
Most stories ended with, and he was humiliated.
Hey! Now if Sam wearing something different to express his individuality makes him a homo, well then, I guess we should all be proud to be homos. Now you go ahead, Sam.
Problems we have as teenagers, we continue to have through our whole lives of like trying to figure out who am I, how do I fit in, what am I doing the right thing?
Seems like everything turned out all right, but when I go drop off my kids at school, just even interacting with the parents, I feel as goofy and worthless as I did when I was 11 years old. I can feel that while people are applauding me. In the middle of it, I could just go like, I'm a piece of crap. People assume that if you succeed in this business, let's say like a Letterman or a Leno, and have tremendous success, you'd have every reason to think that you were going to be secure.
How do you feel about that Haiti situation?
Where's that?
That is right next to the Dominican Republic.
Oh, right. That's a great shot. Those people are inconceivably insecure.
That curtain is a perfect metaphor for how someone wants to be seen when they come through the curtain. It's like how we are in life when we want people to think of us a certain way. And then on the other side of the curtain is when we're our real selves.
It's almost good.
Oh, God. I hope we beat Leno.
What he's doing, how he's doing it, how he's saying the line, it is just the vanity of the whole thing. It is just the inflation of ego that needs to be deflated.
Beverly? Somebody's been sitting in my chair.
Do they also eat your porridge too? You know, like Goldilocks and the Three Bears?
Oh, right. Beverly, somebody's been sitting in my chair.
Yes,
Would you
sir.
please send out a memo to tell them not to?
I certainly will.
Thank you.
Going past the joke into what is its character. And these are very vain characters and very driven and very human.
Which one of these do you like the most?
This one.
Yeah, me too.
Larry Sanders is one of showbiz's sacred monsters, attractive and repulsive in equal measure, a rampant egotist with low self-esteem, an insider with all the insecurities of an outsider.
I played myself and I came on the show. I had sex with his wife after they got separated, and he found out about it. So you don't have a problem that she and I, after your divorce.
I have no problem with it. The phrase, be my guest, comes to mind. You know what I mean?
So everything's okay with you and me?
Are you kidding? Couldn't be better. Come on, I'm thrilled you're here.
Fantastic.
Don't worry about it. Hey, listen, let's not bring this thing about Francine up on the show, all right?
Wouldn't dream of it, Larry.
And try to talk up when you're out there on the air.
Rip Torn was his boss, and when they broke for a commercial, Gary looked at me and said, "I'll be right back." And he walked over to Rip, and he said, every time I look at him, I keep seeing him having sex with Francine, and Francine's on top. And Rip Torn goes, "The lazy bastard." And I just remember that show. I mean, Larry just has this really sophisticated level of patheticness. Well, actually, Larry, you and I have something in common.
Yes. Yes, we do. A lot of you probably don't know that Alec and I, Alec used to actually date my ex-wife, Francine.
No, I was referring to our charity work with multiple sclerosis.
I know.
People would say, "Oh, he's such a fool." I never thought he was a fool. I just thought he was terribly needy.
Let's take a little commercial break.
I was there for about 5 years, and everything I learned about storytelling, I mainly learned from being around Gary. And Gary used to say that the Larry Sanders Show is about a group of people who love each other, but show business gets in the way.
So that was the secret. Those characters were all seeking love. They're just covering it because it's not safe.
What's wrong?
Oh, nothing. Nothing. It's not you. It's safe to have an audience, and there's only so much of yourself that they can reject.
Maybe we should watch a little TV.
But getting that love from a camera is awfully desperate.
For the I generation, that lonely crowd, each one lost in an I world of their own invention, dysfunction is the new funny.
There's certain elements of comedy that always have to be there. Narcissism is one of them.
every character needs to have a fatal flaw, or a series of fatal flaws. It's an inability to see something about themselves.
The very definition of narcissism is you can't see beyond the tip of your own nose. The center of the universe is you and only you, and everything else revolves around you.
Take it back! If I wanted something your thumb touched, I'd eat the inside of your ear!
I would say Arrested Development was very heavily informed by the idea of narcissism as kind of a modern problem. Every one of those characters was self-involved, and they had gotten there because they had the finances to do that.
Bluth Development Company President George Bluth was arrested tonight for defrauding investors and using the company as his personal piggy bank.
It's all about greed. It's how do I look? What do I have?
At the time, the big story in the news was Enron and WorldCom.
And they were just ugly public meltdowns where well-to-do families were fighting each other, suing each other, stealing from each other, lying about each other, and it was just horrible. And we thought it was pretty funny.
They are going to keep Dad in prison at least until this gets all sorted out. Also, the attorney said that they're going to have to put a halt on the company's expense account. Interesting. I would have expected that after they're keeping Dad in jail.
It's interesting to think whether narcissism will always be funny in comedy. It might be a temporal thing. It might be right now.
I'm absolutely consumed about narcissism.
It does seem to be a very, very strong voice in comedy right now.
I think this stuff about Twitter and Facebook is very odd. I don't think it's about communication. I don't think it's about communication when you say, I just bought a grape. Who cares if you bought a grape?
Narcissists never have any idea that they're raging assholes. They have their logic. They see the world a particular way. And if you're as gifted as Mitch Hurwitz is, you can present that in a way that is somehow still not only funny, but kind of appealing, kind of winning.
You've seen George Bluth on videotape.
You have got to learn to be alone. I cheated and I lied. And I whored around. Caged wisdom changed my life.
Now's your chance to own the entire George Bluth case.
A lot of the comedy came from people truly not understanding why their behavior was antisocial.
I'm Jack Donaghy, new VP of Development for NBCG Universal Kmart.
We own Kmart now.
No. So why are you dressed like we do?
When a narcissist is, not a sociopath, not beyond redemption, not incapable of functioning in the world, but still a narcissist, still kind of out for number one.
I'll call her back. Is she at the White House line? Great. Tell them I need a 4 a.m. tee off time. 5 inches, but it's thick.
There's a correlation with how normal people relate and interact, but it doesn't jibe completely.
I just swung by to see if we were still on for tonight.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Good. See you tonight.
It's pretty interesting to see that somebody kind of vaguely knows, where the out-of-bounds lines are, and manages to stay on the playing field.
Well. Stephen's a good man. He's on partner track at Dewey, and he's a black.
A black? That is offensive.
No, that's his last name. Stephen Black. We're family.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Remarkable people, the Blacks. Musical. Very athletic. Not very good swimmers. Again, I'm talking about the family. Black is African-American, though.
Well, I don't care about that.
Well, I know that is the type of thing we tell ourselves, but trust me, when I was dating Condoleezza, there were genuine cultural tensions. I mean, we would go to the movies and she would yell at the screen. Jack Hughes.
Sense of
sensitivity to other people and an awareness of other people. Like, I have just exactly the right amount I need.
I call.
There's a level of self-awareness that he could attain that's a greater level of self-awareness. So he doesn't care about that.
And I'll see that with this thing.
Cool.
Pair of jacks. Ace high.
3 cowboys.
Oh my God, my wedding ring. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Now you should all learn from Pete's mistake.
My wife's gonna kill me.
I think for Jack, America is like this big golf course. And you play 18 holes, and you have a good score, and I want to go to the clubhouse, and I want to put my feet up, and I want to have a drink. I just don't want to have to worry about poor people, and racism, and pollution, and recycling. I played a great round of golf, and I want to sit back and savor my victory.
That's been the evolution of the Misfit, is that they no longer think little of themselves or think that they're odd. They take it on.
The crown prince of Misfits is Larry David, a character played by Larry David, one of the creators of that grand opera of outsiderdom, Seinfeld. For Larry, being in a majority of one is the only way to roll.
Smile.
And mind your own business, how about that? Larry, the character, sees himself as being right.
I'm right, you're wrong.
In almost all situations.
What is that banana thing?
Have these people that come here and they get 10 samples, you know? And it's not right for the woman working back there. She's got better things to do than just scooping out samples for them. He doesn't like to follow conventions. Got a long wait.
Oh, can I try the tiramisu?
It's good. That's a good one. That's a good one. Get that. Get that.
I think I will.
Yeah, get that.
Thank you.
Get that.
And I think I'd like to try the banana, please.
Banana? Whoa. It might taste like, let me guess, a banana? On the show, I have the freedom to say anything that I want, anything that occurs to me, anything that I would never say in my life. You know, you're like a sample abuser. That's what you are. You're abusing your sampling privileges.
Well,
One
you think
sample,
they have these
2 samples the most. You can't just go on sample after sample.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
You know what? I'm just going to have a plain vanilla, please. Thank you.
Oh, a decision's been made. Oh, we got vanilla. Enjoy.
Thank you. That's not really who Larry is, but I think it's like it is who Larry might like to be.
Vanilla. She winds up with vanilla? You gotta be kidding me. How was the vanilla? The person on the show is the real person. This is the fraud. This one is the fake. This one's fake. And that one's real. And it's as simple as that.
If you don't relate to a character at first, you just say, oh, that, just a jerk. Just a jerk. But if you stay with it long enough, at some point I will guarantee you that the writing of that show is designed to force you to relate.
A little traveling tip. Try not to wear shorts. It's not all that attractive to look at for 5 hours.
Are you kidding? No, I wear these on every flight when I travel.
Really?
Because it's very comfortable. These pants, if you notice, get very hot.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't see where I had to check with the person I'm sitting next to what I should wear.
I'm comfortable in pajamas, but I don't wear pajamas on a plane. I like to sing. I like to whistle. I like to play the bongos on my leg. I like to imitate horses, but I don't do it. Okay?
Yeah.
Because there's somebody sitting next to me.
Okay.
Larry's gift in life is that everything offends him, everything challenges him, everything diminishes him. He perceives everything as a threat.
Well, no, not everything offends me.
There's not a moment where you think that Larry David, the character on Curb Your Enthusiasm, is overthinking what he's going to say and who he's going to be. He walks through life and he has an experience and he reacts to it.
It's not long distance, even if it's in India.
So I'm on the 14th hole. Okay, Lloyd's got these great Cuban cigars. So we're smoking these cigars.
I got some of the other lunch.
The Larry and Curb has actually become the bull in the china closet.
So I was trying to brush my teeth with an apple. It was horrible. Horrible.
Excuse me? Who are you talking to?
Talking to myself.
Well, you're doing it really loud.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're kind of talking loud yourself.
To a person.
What's the difference?
I'm actually...
So instead of being the guy that walks into a situation perceiving some sort of an attack that was never there, Larry on Curb now walks into situations and ignites the flame.
The outside observer is the same level of annoyance.
Well, I need to talk to my friend. I can barely hear you.
Okay, well, maybe if you talk lower to your friend, I'll talk lower to my other self.
Great.
Okay?
Yeah,
all right, good.
Jesus Christ. I'm
What
literally
a schmuck.
minding
He's
my
been talking to himself.
Sometimes there are these outsiders who you'd label as misfits or dysfunctional, but really peel it away, and you keep finding very, very human, relatable aspects of that misfit's personality.
She's got my vote. She's such an inspiration. It's nice to see someone like me on a poster for a change.
I have two boys, 14 and 16, and everybody's a freaking geek now. It's great.
What are you doing? Oh, hey! I'm running for prom queen. As a joke, right?
Does it look like I'm joking?
Well, when your name appears on that ballot, the whole school's gonna think it's a laugh riot, and you may just get enough votes to win.
It's sort of the idea.
Look at what Glee has done. The normal kids are the ones that are, they're kind of the oddball ones.
Hit it! Disabilities, love you outlast the leoties. Rejoice and love yourself today, cause baby, you were born this way.
I think if you scratch anybody, we are all the misfits. We are all the stranger.
There's been an evolution that's reflected on television that people are starting to understand that humans are flawed.
That's why we like the oddball, the outsider.
There isn't as much emphasis on conformity as there used to be. Now it's almost cool to be weird.
I don't even know what a misfit is anymore. How many people actually relate to Brad Pitt? You know, like how many people like look at him and go like, that's me.
Thank heaven thing is still normal.
In great storytelling, you feel close to the world, you feel close to humanity, and that's why we like these shows, because it reflects, most people's struggle.
It has to have some element of truth that we recognize.
I had a pretty dysfunctional family, and we didn't really talk too much or interact too much, but the thing that did bring us together was gathering around the television after our dinners were done and watching television comedies. That was really, really important to me. Kind of the family sitting around and laughing together.
I am king of the county.
There's just something very intimate about watching television. It's in your house. It's this far away from you. You're in a relationship with what's happening on the screen.
It can, at its best, kind of bring people together and help define a culture.
We strive all our lives as writers, artists, actors, to connect with other people through what we do. TV at its best connects with you directly, personally, because it's a small box in your house. Maybe even in your room, maybe next to your bed. There is no more intimate connection that you have with anything other than the people next to you. But the TV, because of its size and because of the smaller nature of the stories that are being told for the small screen, actually get in a little deeper sometimes.
the United States of Television America in Primetime continues next Saturday night at 10:15. Now, a little bit of Las Vegas on the Lancashire coast. Stay with us on BBC Two for Blackpool Big Night Out next. Or for more stateside humour, head to BBC Three. Stan's taking up